Once was a ship that put to sea, and the name of that ship was a Billy at Tea. The winds blew hard, her bow dipped down, and blow, my bully boys blow. Ha! Soon may the weather wind come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. She had not been 2 weeks from shore when down on her a right whale bore. The captain called all hands and swore he'd take that whale in tow. Ha! Soon may the weatherman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Once was a ship that put to sea, and the name of that ship was a Billy at Tea. The winds blew hard, her bow dipped down, and blow, my bully boys blow. Ha! Soon may the weatherman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. She had not been 2 weeks from shore when down on her a right whale bore. The captain called all hands and swore he'd take that whale in tow. Ha! Soon may the weatherman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Once was a ship.
And we are now officially at 100% live. Here with my lovely guest, Arana.
Hello.
Hello,
I cannot see chat because of the setup we have going, so...
Oh, because you're not allowed to tab out.
Yeah, I only have 2 screens, so one of them is used for the green screen. So.
All right, in that case, hold on. Let me. Now let's see where. Here, I'll watch your chat for you.
Sounds good.
Oh wow, I look blurry as hell. Well, anyways, welcome to my sort of podcasty collab thing I do every now and then. Have you ever played Raft before?
Yes.
Alright.
I have played Raft before. I have a much bigger boat than this.
Okay, good. So I won't have to, like, basically mommy you through the whole thing like I've had to before.
Yeah, you won't need to hold my hand. Don't worry.
In that case, why don't we start... you said you're a daemon, and that there is a difference between that and demon. Would you care to explain that further?
Well, demons deal specifically with hell. I don't like those politics. I deal more with the acquisition of relics from different mortal worlds, mostly.
Hmm. Would you consider yourself infernal, though?
Infernal? I mean, on my mom's side.
On your mom's side. I hear the shark. By the way, feel free to take whatever resources are in the chest to craft yourself like a spear. What's on my raft is yours. So it's interesting. How old are you, by the way? I don't think I ever asked you that.
I mean, I'm technically ageless because I'm older than your reality, but we can go with 25 because that's how many years I've spent collectively on your planet.
Right on.
That makes sense, right?
I guess that makes sense, yeah. And, to sustain yourself in this world, I assume you have a job of sorts?
Yeah, unfortunately. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I make t-shirts. Well, I make the designs. I don't touch the t-shirts. I make the designs for t-shirts.
Mm-hmm. What would you describe as, like, a day at your job like?
You don't want armor on... I mean, the shark can attack these then.
Reinforcements. We can just craft those.
Well, that's true, too. Okay.
And that's the plan.
Typical day, sales comes to me with some stupid order from some place, and, either it's new art, in which case I get to do a fun job of making some new artwork, or it's someone ordering something we've already done, in which case I swap out a name or a logo or an icon, and yeah, that's usually what I end up doing, and that's boring.
Sounds like a crappy job, honestly. I'm sure you have your ups and downs, though, right?
Yeah. The spring and fall, the catalogs go out to all the resorts and schools and stuff, and we get to do new designs for those, so.
I imagine you'd want to do something different with your life, though, right? For as long as you're here? Instead of...
Yeah.
What would you say that dream is?
Well, until recently, I didn't really know. But now that I sort of got inspired by a couple other VTubers to try this, and a few friends pushed me into it, so I'm like, you know, this would be fun. This would be an opportunity to be creative.
Be
I can
yourself
do it on
anonymously?
stream. What?
Be yourself, like, anonymously?
Yeah. I don't have to, I'm not a very, social person in,
I can relate to that.
I have a few, like, I'm on the spectrum, and for autism, I mean, and for, like, a couple other things, so socializing normally is, can be difficult.
It feels like every VTuber, ever since someone pointed this out to me, it feels like every VTuber has autism.
I think it's part of the allure. It's, we don't have to be... We can be ourselves without exposing ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. By the way, in case it wasn't fully understood, I am on the spectrum too. But what actually, like, what was the inspiration becoming a VTuber?
The inspiration for my model, or for me becoming a VTuber?
Ooh, that's a whole another series of questions. Is that an island over there? Let's head that way. So what I mean is... Sorry, I'm blanking out just a little bit. Like, what... First and foremost, how'd you get into VTubing as a thing? Like, how did you discover this?
I had a really annoying friend who wouldn't shut up about it. Totally honest. That is exactly how it happened.
Wow, talk about, like, kicking someone straight under the bus.
Yeah, but no, I mean, he would do the same to me, so...
What a friend. And do you have any favorites in the VTuber community?
For the... I really like, Calliope Mori. Her music, is sort of... Oh, you just went, like, all the fuck blurred.
Yeah.
There you're back. Her music, it was sort of...
Are you using the Discord method?
No, I'm not using the Discord.
Okay, then I have no idea why it's so blurry, because I made specifically sure that I was, like, making the full-size model so that it's easier to see on your side.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know computers. I just work on them all day. I mean, I don't do anything with them other than paint pretty pictures, but no. Calliope Mori's her being able to sing her music and stuff like that without um that that was kind of just what inspired me. I'm like, because
Without, like, what do you mean, revealing her identity?
well, she doesn't have to have like um a label, or I know she's corporate, but um
She doesn't have to worry about fans on the street, basically.
yeah, and like I had tried I mean uh I had done artwork in the past, but it it's it's hard to get your name attached to stuff when all you're doing is drawing pictures, I guess. This was a way to be more involved with my artwork.
Uh, Actually, I was gonna ask something else, but let's start with the inspiration for your model. Where'd that come from?
Um well, it was I was kind of going through different ideas, and I kind of liked the idea for a spider because not everyone likes spiders. They're kind of I can't do cute and cuddly. It's just not me. So I thought, spider. Um,
Interesting. So then what inspired your artwork to begin with, if not something cute and cuddly? Like, what would you say was the style you chose?
Gothic Victorian.
Hmm. You wouldn't happen to be a Warhammer fan, would you?
Uh, I'm not a big Warhammer fan. I know a lot of it. Um, I'm just, it's a little too bleak for me.
Too grimdark. Understandable. That said, the thing about Warhammer you have to understand is that it's meant in irony. Like,
Yes.
it's over the top in how grimdark it is, and it's very self-aware of that.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but that doesn't change the fact that it's just not something.
That's fair. Not everything's for everyone. Uh, Actually, in that case, maybe you should try playing Blasphemous someday, because that is very gothic. Like, extremely.
Think I've heard of it, but I don't know if I played it.
Uh, Speaking of Calliope Moore, she played it.
Oh right, I have a leg. I can't kill a shark as easily. My bad.
Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna... Wait, do I have the inventory space? No, I don't. Shit. I'm gonna have to start managing stuff. What else was I gonna say? So, spiders specifically because people hate them, you said?
More or less, yeah.
And any particular inspiration? You said... I think you said before when I was in one of your streams, Black Widow was one of the inspirations. Oh, Shark's dead! Shark's dead! Shark's dead!
Not the character Black Widow, the actual spider. I like the aesthetic of it.
The hourglass.
Yeah.
That is a very strange, like, coincidence. Like a death's head moth.
Yeah, exactly like a death's head moth.
Oh yeah, I was just remembering the other question I was gonna get to. When did you actually start your art? Like, when did that come to you?
Uh, start my drawing or start this project?
Well,
Because I've been drawing all my life. I don't remember a time when I wasn't drawing something.
really? That's
Yeah.
interesting. So even in kindergarten, you were always...
I was the kid always doodling instead of taking notes. And then the teacher would get mad at me, but I also did fine in school, so they couldn't get mad at me.
Okay,
I,
can
I
can I ask a probing question next? Did you ever go through a phase with your art, when you hit puberty?
a phase in my art when I hit puberty. Like, what do you mean?
I mean, like, cause I know there's lots of artists who, basically start to draw lewd things once they themselves hit, maturity as a way of, like, expression. And it's, like, a very hilarious but also embarrassing time in their life. You ever had anything like that?
He, yeah, I've gone through that. I I know some who like they went way deep in down that rabbit hole, but I don't know if I know a lot who, you know, didn't.
Right. Can you get me in contact with them?
What is that?
It's me trying to make a joke. That's what it is. Let's see, is there any iron ore down here? So that's interesting. I don't think I've, like, usually, I have interviewed other artists on here. There was, like, an age, like, maybe 16, where they started taking this seriously, but you've just been doing this forever?
Yes, I was actually I had a picture in the Young Arts Museum for a while until
Interesting.
I think I was 12.
Hmm. But was there a certain point where you started to, like, realize that you weren't just scribbling with crayons and you were actually making art? Like something passionately crafted with skill?
Um, I suppose in high school when um I helped paint a mural in town. That was kind of like the first time I'm like, oh, I can do more with this than just doodle.
I guess that must have filled you with a very real sense of fulfillment. Honestly, I've been lacking that sense of fulfillment all my life.
Well, it's been up and down for me because when I uh first year of college, um, the first semester went fine. Um, and then the second semester was a train wreck. I went from being on the dean's list to almost dropping out.
Ouch.
I I went through some depression and anxiety issues, and yeah, it was a mess. So,
Are you comfortable sharing that story?
am I what?
Are you comfortable sharing that story?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that happened in the past.
Sure. Why don't you feel free to go into as much detail as you want.
Um, okay, let's see. I started out in computer science because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that seemed like a safe job.
I have a very similar experience to this already. Like, I know the way this is gonna go, but continue.
Um, like I'm, I, I excel at most things academic. It's like personal relationships that, like I've been in group therapy where I've literally had a book on how to socialize, like a workbook like you would give a grade schooler, but on how to be a normal human being.
I don't think I ever had a book, but I've definitely had to go to, like, group therapy sessions.
Yeah, but let's see. I started in computer science because that seemed like I mean, like, I don't know. I wouldn't have to interact with people very much. I could, um,
All right, just a off-topic question. Did you enjoy math at all?
I, I'm, I'm pretty good at math. I like problem solving.
See,
Um,
that's
I,
what I thought.
yeah,
Because
yeah, I have taken up to Calc 2. I don't count, no, I shouldn't count Calc 2 because I nearly failed that.
yeah,
We'll go
calculus is
with
where I
calculus.
dropped.
But, yeah, I did that stuff and, I thought it would, you know, be okay, but I did not like it at all. And I got depressed and I transferred schools and I changed to graphic design and I had a good year. I started dating someone. We'll just call him an ex because he's not important because it didn't work out
But
and that was
I'm not gonna go into detail, but was it messy?
yeah.
All
That
right.
it was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh,
The breakup happened, and then it was just
downhill.
yeah. I took a year off for medical leave, and but I came back. I have my degree, so you know, you get knocked down. You do. Oh God, I quoted a Chumbawamba song. That's what I was about to do. I think I just aged myself a little bit too.
Honestly, I'm only a year younger than you, if I'm gonna be totally honest.
Okay.
It feels strange, like, how little I understand the youth, even though they are still part of my generation.
I think generation is sort of overblown. It doesn't really make that much. I mean, the only thing anyone from one generation is going to have in common, really, is they're going to have a few shared experiences because of history.
That's fair. Although, I think another part of it is because, and I've heard people talk about this and why we're never gonna have, like, another memorable decade again. And that's because the internet makes things go way too fast. Like, cultural trends are no longer years, they're months or weeks.
Yes and no. I mean, um, uh, was it Socrates or one of the Greek philosophers was killed for corrupting the youth? And I'm like, well,
That has to be Socrates.
that hasn't changed in what? It's 2001 now, and or
2021.
2021, and there's still, conservative assholes who are like, they're corrupting the youth with their whatever it is now. So
There actually
I think,
was one quote from a Greek philosopher that talked about how the youth of their generation were concerned with things such as the look of their sandals and how they were, in many cases, just very disrespectful to their elders. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like a teenager to you?
I mean, pretty much, yeah.
I always found that fascinating. That's actually what got me into history, was the amazing relatability that could be had in it. One of my favorite historical subjects is graffiti, actually. Because that's where you truly realize how much people have not changed.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, it's funny. Like some of the most telling things that give us a greater insight into the daily lives of people are like little messages written on walls and like clay pots because shards of powder were used for like they found shopping lists and stuff like that, and like.
Yeah, and I specifically remember, like, a 4chan thread where someone posted, like, an actual, it was like a university paper about, graffiti that was found at Pompeii, and they were going nuts over it, because they realized, holy shit, these people are just like us. And, like, it was such an amazing moment for 4chan, because they realized, wow, ancient Romans were the original shit posters.
Oh yeah, no. Egypt, when Hatshepsut was pharaoh, there were tons of people basically slut shaming her because she had a relationship with her lead architect. So yeah, people were slut shaming the pharaoh.
Yeah, then again, wasn't it sort of, like, weird when she was a pharaoh? Because if I remember correctly, they had to, like, put a beard on her statues. Because,
Yes, Egypt was it wasn't necessarily that they had to, but she almost. At her time, the pharaoh was, I mean, it
always
was
male.
entirely patriarchal. So, yeah, to appear more like a pharaoh, she donned the garbs of a pharaoh, which included a. I hate to break it to you, but all the pharaohs had fake beards. That wasn't a real beard they were wearing.
I mean, I wouldn't imagine so. Egyptian history is not my forte, though. It's clear, though, that you definitely enjoy history, too, which I am excited about. Finally, someone who shares my passion. I'm more in the subject of 20th century history, and I dabble in a few other subjects like the French Revolution, Rome, and I actually have quite an extensive knowledge on modern history of Japan. Completely unrelated to being a weeaboo.
Yeah, modern history can be fun, but I find it's difficult to talk to anyone about it because, well, what people don't realize is that history is political. There's no separating the two. Like, you can't have a discussion about the 1970s without going into, like, the political climate of the time.
That's true. However, I do think it's possible to separate oneself from the politics with enough willpower. Like, just.
Well, I mean, personal politics, yes. But with, I mean, what was going on, like, if it's the civil rights movement, that was politics. If it was the Civil War, that was politics. If it was the French Revolution, that was politics.
Yeah, history is basically all politics. There is no getting around that. Still, that's part of what makes it so fascinating and relatable. Is because you realize that a lot of problems are still around.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
The only thing we can do is learn from history so we don't repeat it. But what would you say is your favorite particular subject with history?
My favorite what?
Like, a particular subject of history that you enjoyed, like a time period, a country.
I don't know if there's. I mean, I like to dabble in a lot of different ones. Goddamn Bruce, get the fuck out of here.
Bruce.
Um,
I call
I
the
mean,
shark Artemis.
if I had to pick, I think the idea of moral codes has always fascinated me. How people will make them and then instantly make excuses to get around them, like bushido or chivalry, those kind of things. It's really they can be really fascinating, and then at the same time, show just how truly hypocritical some people can be.
If I
Because
remember correctly, Bushido wasn't even made by samurai who fought in combat as well.
yeah, a lot of, well, I mean, like, it, with chivalry, it was like, it only really applied to the upper class. And Bushido was a lot of the same. It was, you know, you need to have honor in this certain situation, otherwise fuck it.
True. Though I suppose it's not fair to judge other people by modern standards. Back then, these were the kinds of things that...
True. Yeah, you shouldn't, what is that?
The vast majority of human history is full of horrible people.
Well, it's important to realize that at any time people were still people. There's never going to be this exemplar um, that's going to be the perfect model of virtue and righteousness. But at the same time, I mean, there are some that come closer than others.
Come closer to what exactly?
Being a better person than...
That's true. I mean, Gandhi wasn't perfect, but we should still learn from his example.
No, he was, a big problem with him is he was actually a misogynist.
Yeah, but like I said, it's best to learn from the things he wanted us to teach.
Yes,
Then-
yes. It's recognizing that these people were people and they had flaws, but that doesn't mean that what they did is any less valuable.
Yeah, and that's
Like,
one of those
I
things
really-
that makes me sad about the world today. It's like, are the people who'll just, I guess, maybe as part of a conversation or to stand out and have an, like, you know, an unpopular opinion, because why not, like, target certain historical figures. And of course, some of them deserve it more than others, but still. Feels like they take it personally, don't you think?
Yeah.
Anyways, by the way, did you have any questions for me?
Sure. Why a knuckle V? Did I say that right? I think I did.
Knuckle of V. I think you said it close enough. I guess I don't even know when I learned about them, but it was very recent. Very, very recent. But something about them just always amazed me. Probably because, first and foremost, they were so obscure, and thus you didn't have to worry about any sort of tropes with them. Like, it's not like vampires, where there's, like, so many different tropes. Plus, if you're a werewolf, people start to call you a furry. I think the...
Only furry on the full moon.
Fair. I think it's also just because they look really metal. Like, very, very metal.
Yeah. The flayed skin will do that.
I guess it was also the fact that, there's just so little information about them.
Oh, a lot of obscure myths are like that. Like, Loki, people were losing their shit about Marvel calling him bi, and I'm like, dudes, he had a snake, a horse, and a wolf for kids. Loki was a whole lot more than just bi.
Didn't he also turn into a six-legged horse? Hello, Hats. Thank you for coming. Didn't he also, by the way, the shark's attacking.
Shark is dead. It depends on the myth because ouch. Shark is back, not dead. Got it.
Hats says Loki is a vibe.
Oh,
Oh, there was someone in your chat, saying Glorious Purpose. Druder, 420.
Yeah, you didn't even have to say who it was. I knew as soon. He's quoting the Loki show. But
Is he a regular of yours?
yes, he's the friend that pushed me into being a VTuber.
Ah, that explains it. Yeah.
We know each other quite well.
I'll just say this about him. The fact that he's in your stream means he's a real friend, because that's what I do, and that's why, after you agreed to collab with me, I tried the first chance I got to hop into one of your streams, simply to support you. Like,
that's nice.
That's how you know you have good friends, is when they can do things like that unsolicited.
Yes.
Hatch says he hasn't seen episode 6 of Loki, so don't spoil it for him.
Okay, no Loki spoilers, but I was just talking about the myths. Depending on when they're, because Nordic and Germanic both have myths about the those gods. In more Germanic myths, Thor is actually a demigod, and Loki is his uncle, and Loki is Odin's brother. But it changes completely if you go to another country, and Loki becomes Thor's half brother, and so it's really interesting how much the myth and the lore can change just by traveling a few hundred miles.
It's fascinating. Do you have any other questions for me, by the way?
Any connection to Scotland?
Not at all.
Just like the myth? That's cool.
Well, I mean, we aren't native to Scotland, we're native to the ocean itself. It's just the Scottish were the ones who named us.
Fair enough.
I mean, we have our own language, but it's not something that your ears can pick up because it's used infrasound.
Well, that was kind of my thing when people ask me for a name. I'm like, you can't pronounce it, because...
It's not meant to be pronounced by human vocal organs.
Right.
Very
so
Lovecraftian.
I just picked Spider. Super original.
Hats in regards to your comment about mythology said, so it's an insane game of telephone. I don't think that's entirely false.
What was that?
About your comment about, like, mythology and how it changes from country to country, he explains it's basically an insane game of telephone.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Also, there was something I was meaning to get to, but we kind of got sidetracked. So, you talked about how rough it was in college. Does that mean that you had, like, doubts about your ability to succeed in the world as an artist?
Yes. I think, not just me, but I think a lot of artists have what, I don't know if it's it's more of a pseudo-psychology thing. It's called imposter syndrome. It's the belief that you're only where you are because of sheer dumb luck. You have no skill, you have no talent, and
I have that. Also, in before someone immediately says sus.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it's like any day you feel like sooner, like any day now, someone's gonna figure me out and know that I'm just a hack. I'm not an artist. I don't belong in my job.
One sec. It's alright, Hats. The archive will be up. Feel free to watch all the other archives. He says sus. And of course, like, comment, subscribe, anything that to help validate me, because like I said, I have imposter syndrome, and I need constant validation. Anyways, so what were you saying?
I think that was it.
Well, I mean, I can certainly attest to what I've seen on your stream. You definitely do have talent. Plus, you made your own model. And it's definitely better than mine. I don't want to, like, rag on my mama, but I do think she was, like, still, gaining experience. And I think she would admit to that, because since then she has increased her prices, and she's talked about how she's improved. By the way, do you have any advice for the struggling artist?
Practice. Nothing can replace practice. Literally, your hand needs to learn how to draw. Some of the simplest practices are just repeatedly trying to draw a circle of the same size over and over and over and over and over again. And all that is trying to develop muscle memory.
Hats is asking how you made your model, saying it looks insanely good.
The model itself was done by Seriously Megan on Fiverr.
Specifically the rigging, right?
Yes, the rigging. The character design was mine. How I made it was I found some concept art. I found some clothing I liked. I found bits and bobs and kind of picked the best parts of those and made what I wanted it to look like.
You know, you're touching upon a very fascinating subject I've been thinking about, like, philosophically, and that is the fact that, like, creativity has to have a source. It does not come out of thin air, right?
Oh, no. Yes, it even if you don't think it can, like, subconsciously we think of things and we don't even realize that it might have been something you heard when you were, like, 10, or a poem you listened to when you were, half asleep.
Actually, that
your
sorry, can I just have the mic back for a second? That actually touches on something else I was about to say about your advice. Apparently this was something said by Michelangelo. I don't know, because I just heard it from JoJo.
Okay.
But it's the idea that, according to him, he does not carve the marble so much as he helps it take a shape it was already meant to. How do you think that factors into creativity in the process of creating art? That it's something that reveals itself to you over time?
Well, that's a little tricky because I know some sculptors, and when they say stuff like that, they literally mean, like, there's a shape in there that, like, they'll look at a piece of wood or they'll look at a rock and be like, this is supposed to be something.
That's kind of what I'm talking about.
But, it's different when it's a blank canvas, because then it's not like, well, this sort of looks like a duck, I'll make it into a duck. But, no, it's sort of the same, yeah.
Hatz says spite is the greatest motivator in my opinion. For instance, Freud, the father of psychology. I think this is related to something you said before. He also says, he made claims about so absurd that hundreds of research were done against his claims. That's hilarious. Did that make sense to you?
Sort of.
Basically, that Freud was so, like, absurd with his claims that he motivated a bunch of other researchers to prove him wrong. And started the whole field of psychology.
Yeah, Freud, he started the practice of psychology, but he was wrong about pretty much everything. We were talking about Michelangelo, and one of my favorite tidbits is, because we were talking about how everyone's sort of, like, nothing's really changed. The Renaissance artists, not all of them liked each other.
Not all of them even existed when each other existed.
Oh, no, Leonardo and Michelangelo existed at the same time, and they hated each other.
I mean...
Michelangelo didn't think Leonardo could draw at all, and Leonardo thought that Michelangelo's art, or his anatomy, looked like a sack of walnuts.
I mean, his anatomy does look JoJo-esque. Like, very...
Yes.
Even the
He,
women are muscular.
yes, he made fun of Michelangelo's anatomy. I just like, so, even in the
I...
Renaissance, the period we think of like as this refined moment of history, people were still smack talking one another.
Oh, people have been shit-talking each other forever. There is no such thing as civilized talk.
Oh no, that's just the bullshit that the
Plus, I
people.
mean, like, weren't they both eccentrics? Like, uh, if you get enough eccentrics together, then of course they'll hate each other.
Yeah. Well,
Hat says, it's obvious that the artistic old men would hate each other. And he says Michelangelo was wild, which he emphasized with several D's at the end of wild.
I also like that Leonardo's Mona Lisa is his masterpiece, pretty much because Leonardo said it was.
Sorry, what was that? I was rain chat for a second.
Leonardo, the Mona Lisa by Leonardo, it does have a lot of good qualities, but one of the biggest reasons it's considered a masterpiece is because Leonardo said it was.
That sounds hilarious. Like, that's kind of like, slapping a Supreme sticker on something.
Yeah.
So anyways, what did Hat say? I read somewhere that he, Michelangelo, once made a sculpture so good and broke off its arms, then hid the sculpture. When they found it, they thought it was God. It was a god, and he popped up, with its arms, proved that he was good. Interesting. So in other words, he sabotaged his own work just to prove he made it so good.
It sounds like something Michelangelo would do.
I guess you know a lot more about art history than I do.
Not nearly as much as, trying to think of, I live with two other people that, were romantically involved, so it's,
Yeah, you actually touched upon it last time I was in your stream. I don't know, I think it's a very interesting topic that not a lot of people fully understand. Do you want to talk about it?
yeah, it polyamory is not something everyone gets, but um there are people who can explain it much better than I can, and I would suggest going to them. I all I can say is I am dating two girls, and they're dating me, and we're happy together. Polyamory looks different for everyone who practices it. So, I mean, there's some commonality between a couple, but you know, one couple might be fine with, a third. They have a partner who comes in occasionally, but isn't necessarily romantically tied to them. It, it, it it's complicated to explain because so many people think of relationships as having to be just two people.
So, would one way of describing it being one fulfills the heart while the other fulfills the soul or something?
I mean, you could describe it that way, and another way is just that they're two different people that I care a lot about. They're as different as night and day, so it's, I don't know.
So instead of a better half, it's two halves.
Yeah,
Two
and
people needed to complete you.
yeah, it's funny because in modern times we think of it as something so foreign, but for most of,
Hat
for
says
most of human history, it really wasn't.
Hat says group sex, and then I guess some sort of like I don't know how you describe the emoji, but it's like, nodding your head in respect.
Um, I mean, there's that aspect of it too.
By the way, in case you're wondering, I don't care about being say so on this stream. So
Okay.
if you don't have that policy, go right ahead. I don't care.
Yes, there's group sex.
All right, go on.
Does that make you happy?
Don't worry, I made sure to clear my head before the stream. Anyways, what else were we talking about? Oh yeah, I was talking about a while ago, like, the whole point of, like, revealing the shape within the sculpture, because that's... Ever since I heard that quote, I started applying it to my own work as a video editor. Because, also, Hat says he's dying, Lamau. Because a lot of the time, I don't really... Like, I know that something funny happens in the clips, but I never really know what to do with them until I, like, think about it. But
Oh
once...
my god. I'm sorry, I'm listening to you. It's just, they let us upgrade the boards now without... I don't have to take it up. Sorry, my OCD went off the board there for a second.
Oh, that's alright. By the way, feel free to decorate this. I want this sort of be like, you know, everyone on the raft gets their own segment. Actually, the chair on that corner was added in by one of my first guests.
But, please continue.
I was just talking about how it's fascinating that there is this sort of element, and I guess this goes with what I said before about, inspiration, or like creativity not coming from thin air, it has to be inspired. Because I really did find that quote fascinating, in how much it explained, like, I don't think I'm doing a good job of explaining this, actually, but, just, how do I explain this? I don't know. I'm lost. Nash, hello Nash, who says, I really walked into Smart People Talk. Yeah, this is the Raftcast. This is my, basically it's a podcast thing, and I try to get as intellectual as I can. Actually, that's the thing. The origin of this was, my V-brother, Gothzapper. He was one of the first people I collabed with, and, we were looking for games we had in common, and he said Raft, and I'm like, sure. So, we started playing, and then we started to talk about all these different concepts. We talked about history and politics. And it's like, we're turning this into a podcast. And ever since then, assuming that the guest has a raft, or assuming there's a sale and I have the money to buy it for them, I like to invite guests onto the show.
Between two waves.
I haven't
Is
looked
that
at
still a
your
podcast between two is it shrubs?
Between Two Waves. I don't think I've heard of that podcast.
No, I was saying that's what you should call yours because of the podcast called Between Two Shrubs, I think it's called.
Okay, that I also never heard of. I don't watch a lot of podcasts, honestly, aside from Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. But my sister, though, she is kind of obsessed with, like, murder mystery podcasts.
They can be fun and also depressing.
I suppose. Do you have any particular podcasts that you enjoy? Like, are you the type of person who listens to podcasts while you're doing work?
No, I listen to music,
Same.
watch anime. I'm a lazy bohemian. I do whatever I want, because all I do is paint pictures. I feel so bad because, like, other people have jobs, and I'm like, I go to work, and I'll even complain about it, but all I'm doing is coloring.
So, I'm just curious. You say your friend convinced you into doing this. What was, like, what was actually said? How did they sell you on the pitch?
Well, they kind of just kept repeating it. I was, it was, it was just getting out of, I mean, COVID was still going on, and some stuff had just started opening up, but, my job, it hadn't, opened fully. So, so at my job, a lot of us were just filling in on the floor, and I absolutely hated. I don't mean to sound like I can't, or like I don't want to sound like I feel like I'm better than any job. It's just there are jobs with my personality and my OCD
That's understandable.
that I can't do, and
Like with my anxiety, I can't handle stressful situations.
yeah, so they're like, hey,
Meanwhile, I play Escape from Tarkov, which is as stressful as it gets.
right. So they had put me on the production floor, and I was folding shirts all day, and like bright fluorescent lights, loud machinery, surrounded by people. I'm like, this is the perfect habitat for someone with social anxiety issues. So I wasn't feeling very good about that, and he just kept bringing up, well, you could just, quit your job and become a VTuber, and he kind of just kept saying it over and over again.
Actually, there was one thing, and I remember to put a pin in this in my mind as a question. Are you planning on selling your services as a model maker?
I'm not planning on Sony, no.
Honestly, I think you should. Your model, as an example, looks amazing. I think if you create a Fiverr account, you'll get people.
Yeah, I've only been doing this for a few months, and it's definitely been a side project. And also, but yeah, no, I am looking for ways to expand it, because this is it's been a lot of fun doing this.
Oh hey, Margoth, yes, not Demon, Damon. Apparently there's a difference.
Yes, Damon is, well, it is an archaic way of spelling demon, but also in Greek mythology, they were sort of like the in-betweens between gods and mortals.
And that does not mean demigod, then.
No.
Interesting. Well, this conversation ground to a halt. Alright,
I'm fishing.
Holy shit, there's manta ray here! Look!
It's cool, a lot of the stuff they added.
Yeah, I remember they added things like that, and, like, there's whales and stuff. They're all, like, just for show, right? Just to populate the world?
Yeah, for now they're just for show. There's, like, pods of dolphins and stuff.
Actually, here's a conversation. Video games. Do you have a preferred genre or, like, a particular favorite video game?
RPGs. I love RPGs. I've played Final Fantasy forever. I don't know why my computer doesn't like it flickers in and out of your video, but no, I have hundreds of hours in Fallout, and I like role-playing games. I love D&D too.
Actually, if you do look at my model, you see the D20 on the chain.
Yes.
I decide at some point if I were isekai'd into My Little Pony, that would be my cutie mark. Cause I am a forever DM. Like,
I have been a player and a DM.
yeah, like nobody wants to do it, so that's my burden. I have actually been attempting to get together a VTuber RPG group, like everyone streams on a Saturday night. The problem is like scheduling and stuff.
The problem with D&D is always scheduling. It
It's
has
always
no break
scheduling.
costs.
That has torpedoed so many of my adventures, especially the ones that we're about to come to like really satisfying conclusions. Island up ahead. Good, the shark's almost dead, so we can kill it, we can get resources, it'll be nice.
There was a module that came out that was sort of like a satirical one called Monsters of America. It looked so stupid and funny. You were like fighting against late stage capitalism and stuff.
That definitely sounds like social commentary on America.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say who was the final boss, but
I think I can tell.
I think everyone can figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, like, yeah. I will say though, on the subject of he who will not be named, it feels like he is such a low-hanging fruit. Honestly.
Absolutely.
It's like I don't even have the capacity to hate him. It's like it's just such an easy target.
I mean, how many other political figures have a fucking cult?
I mean, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, you're right.
By the way, I would assume that you're in America.
Yes, I am in America. Central time zone, which means I'm smack dab in the middle of nowhere.
Which, in some cases, can be very helpful.
Yes.
Actually, would you say that's been helpful for you, just as a career as an artist, being somewhere nice and quiet?
It has pros and cons. I mean, I never lack for scenery and different and inspiration, but there's less opportunity. You can't really just there
As in, there's like less opportunity to like network and grow a business in a small town.
that there if you're in Chicago or New York or LA, there's large communities of artists. I mean, that means more competition, but that also means more people to learn from, to work with.
To network.
So it's
Honestly,
yeah.
this sounds like even more justification to start offering your services to make VTuber models. Because geography doesn't matter on the internet, right? You could be anywhere. You could be in Alaska. You could be like in the middle of the Sahara Desert. It doesn't matter.
I've done my head is blanking on the word.
Commission work?
Pump work before. Not for VTube, but just in general. Geography still shockingly does play an effect because of cost.
I guess that's true, yeah.
It's shitty, but the programs because you need licensed programs or free versions of those programs, or or something like that to do the work, but like Photoshop is more expensive here in the United States than it is in, say, Brazil, which is dumb because it's the same software.
I mean, if my, one of my stream regulars, Deox, were here, he'd probably point you to a way to, like, pirate it.
Yeah, but see, the problem with doing any commission work with pirated material is if you get caught, that is like an permanent X on, like, people will know, and like if you were working with a business, you get the business in trouble, and yeah, it is definitely not worth using pirated. Like, I have had contracts written up where um if when I was doing commission work for other people, it's like, here, I'll do the commission work, but you need to sign this. This says I am not liable if you give me something that is protected, that you don't have license to use.
Interesting, but that's only... Would that only affect you in a corporate sense, or is there, like... Is it sort of like tracing, where it's just culturally seen as a sin?
More in the corporate sense. Like, if you want to make money doing commission work, you're either going to have to get a lot of commissions from low buyers, or you're going to have to get a few commissions from, I mean, let's face it, corporate commissions are more lucrative.
Probably. Though I will say, like, with your talent, if you can lowball yourself, you'll probably have an endless supply.
Yeah, it's, like I said, I'm not I can do concept work for people, but beyond that, like, I would have to learn more of the programming and stuff, which I'm not opposed to, but I don't know if I have the time.
Well, you could always learn it on stream.
That's true. I've seen a couple people do that.
If anything, I've been starting to do editing streams as a way to, like, motivate me to continue editing. Just as an excuse to sharpen my skills.
Yeah, definitely having a set stream where I have to draw something keeps me motivated to draw.
Now, on the subject of, like, learning the programs to create proper models, you could just start with yourself, you know, alternate costumes, alternate forms. You did say you had alternate forms, right?
Yes, I have a human form because let's face it, these legs don't exactly blend in with the rest of people.
I also have a human form, actually. It's a pain to get into, though.
Yeah, I also have like
A full-blown...
a drider. I forget what the Japanese uh, a full spider body, but yeah.
with human half as well, like centaur-ish.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've seen stuff like that before. I'm
Like
familiar with the concept.
Arachne from Monster Musume. And yes, I'm a pervert. I watch Monster Musume.
I don't... I actually don't know what that is, but hey, I'm not judging you if you're a pervert.
It's a girl, but
I
a
guarantee you I'm
monster
a bigger
girl.
pervert.
I
Wait, is that Interspecies Reviewer?
nope, that's a different one, but I
Okay,
watched that too.
okay. I need to finish that one. That one is a comedy genius.
Yes, yes, it is.
It's like...
Monster Musume is just it's like the typical harem, but they did it with monster girls instead of
I'm curious, have you ever heard of, like, this sort of internet meme called, Tower Girls?
called what?
Tower Girls.
Oh yes, They have a game of it. I may have played it.
I think I remember something about a game. That would be hilarious to play on stream, maybe. Actually, is it? How say so is it?
It is. It is not safe for work at
Okay,
all.
never mind then. Never mind then.
You will. It might be pixels, but you will get banned.
Yeah, speaking of, like, my last stream. By the way, if you ever do stream Blasphemous, make sure you have a censor thing ready. Because there was one cutscene with some pixelated titty.
That's always so fascinating to me. That you can show, like, any amount of gore you want on American television and a lot of other televisions. Just, like, beheadings and just gruesome content. But if there's a goddamn nip slip, everyone flips.
Yeah, and then the UK are like, they're like, really? Meanwhile, in the UK, they got their own crazy censorship laws. It seems like every country has something they censor.
Oh yeah, no, every country has their own insane censorship laws. As someone who's studied art, I am aware of that. Like, oh, Colbert was making fun of it when he posted he posted a picture of the statue of David. They're allowed to show it from a distance, uncensored, for like 6 seconds. That's it. Why? What would the extra second difference make? Censorship laws are just it's old people trying to tell everyone else what's right.
Even the young people telling each other what's right and what's wrong. See also
Oh
Twitter.
yeah,
See also
I
Twitter
forgot.
and cancel culture.
Yeah, I forgot about all them.
God, I got someone attempted to cancel me at one point. I'm not gonna throw her under the bus though, because I guess I'm just too much of a no, it's not that I'm too much of a nice guy, it's just honestly I don't hate her. Even though she did try to throw me under the bus. And I would still be friends with her again at a moment's notice. You think that's abusive? Or like that I've got like some sort of like that I just take abuse? Does that sound like it's healthy?
I mean that would be the start of a
Abu-
codependent relationship, so it's not healthy, but it would depend on the context as well.
Unless... Well, I don't think the context is that bad, but I also want to move on from that point in my life, because it was scarring. Do you happen to have any scrap on you?
Yes, I have 9.
Thank you. I need to... Some of my tools are almost broken. What else was I going to say? Actually, going way back to the conversation about video games, do you remember your first?
It was a DOS game.
Ooh, wow, that's classic.
Yes. It was called Quest for Glory, So You Want to Be a Hero.
With a name like that, it kind of sounds like it's meant to be like a parody game.
Nope. Well, sort of. It was an old Sierra game.
Okay, yeah, because I know Sierra has done like some... Did they do Monkey Island?
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
Was Monkey Island Sierra or was it LucasArts?
Oh, it might have been LucasArts, I don't know. All I know is that that game did have some clever humor in it.
Yes, there was parody parts to Quest for Glory, but overall it wasn't a parody game, but there were definitely jokes in there. Like at one point you get attacked by the Three Stooges. In all of their games actually an old comedian shows up. the Marx Brothers show up in the second game.
Ooh, string lights. Nice.
Groucho Marx sells you a camel. There's a sentence you never thought you'd ever hear.
I mean, I could see it. But yeah, that's really old. Like, you're only a year younger, or a year older than me, Jesus. First big game I played was Super Mario Sunshine.
I got my dad's old office computer,
That explains it.
and it only played like I don't know, like Windows 95 or something was the operating system. So yeah, it wasn't. I didn't have a console until high school.
Are you console or PC, by the way? I mean, obviously you're playing this on Steam.
Both.
Both, huh?
Yeah, I prefer PCs, but I mean we have consoles too. I mean the Switch is fun. And
Yeah, sorry,
it's a
but,
lot more
like,
portable.
yeah, I have a bit of an axe to grind with Nintendo myself, so pardon that. What is on this new island we have discovered? I see you. Get off of here. Well, I got no more topics to talk about. Actually, here's one. What was the first anime you watched? And Pokemon does not count, because everyone's seen that.
What doesn't count?
Pokemon.
The first anime would probably have been Dragon Ball Z. But if I'm gonna say the anime that made me like anime, it was Inuyasha.
I don't think I've heard of that one. Keep in mind, though, that I do not refer to the animes by their Japanese pronunciation.
Cowboy Bebop is also a big. I'm a big fan of that
Yeah,
one.
my brother-in-law in particular loves it, and he is so looking forward to the live-action thing. That's the only way he'll ever get my sister to watch anime, is by introducing it through live-action.
Full Metal Alchemist as well. I like that one.
That actually is among my favorites, Brotherhood. Like, it really was a good series from beginning to end, and it didn't feel like it was full of filler either.
Well, filler isn't necessarily a bad thing. It depends on how they do it.
I mean, like, I've seen a lot of shonen where it's like literally 2 episodes at least for a single fight, and it's like half of the episodes monologuing and flashbacks, and it's like, Jesus Christ, get it over with.
Oh yeah, no, that's basically Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, I'm surprised I last as long as I did with Fairy Tail, because I know that's kind of divisive for being exactly what I described.
The first few seasons aren't bad, but yeah, it develops Dragon Ball Z-itis later on in the series.
I've never seen Dragon Ball, so I wouldn't know what that is, but I'm guessing what you mean is it just keeps building up, and there's no real end. Is that what you mean?
No, it's people spending 8 episodes to get through one fight because they spent an entire episode with internal monologue.
Yeah, that's true. I think the other reason, like, it was getting on me was exactly what I said. It felt like it just kept building up to nowhere. Or like it just kept building up to the next level, but there was never... Like, what felt like some kind of big conclusion just ended up being another stepping stone.
Yeah, they wouldn't necessarily finish any story, like...
Well, they'd finish arcs, but, like, the next arc feels more imposing until it doesn't. And then and it foreshadows a new arc, which you think might be the big final arc, but no, it's not.
Well, one thing with stories is you don't... Not every story needs to have one overarching arc. You can have, like, a few little arcs in between, or...
I know,
like,
but, like, how do I describe this? It feels like they're moving the goalpost with the conclusion of the series.
Oh, yes, absolutely, because the problem is it's, what the hell, bird? The bird is immortal!
Oh, is it glitching out for you?
Yes.
It does that sometimes. Don't worry. It's dead, trust me. It's dead on my screen. It's a client-side problem. So what were you saying? Something about
I
anime?
forgot, I got distracted by the immortal bird.
Something about anime.
Um...
Something about shonen and moving the goalposts.
Oh, it's not the writer's idea to continue these series a lot of the times. It's the companies.
Yeah, because they just want to keep the cash cow.
Exactly, and the writers are like, well, we wrote it. The best example for this was Death Note. Death Note, the actual comic or manga they based it on went for like the first season. That was it, because at the end of the first season, the protagonist kills the antagonist. That's it. That's the end of any story. There's nothing. There's no conflict after that.
I don't remember. I haven't seen... I think I might have been an episode or two away from the conclusion. And my mom is still convinced that she's seen the conclusion. And I try to keep telling her, no, we didn't. We never finished it. And I was getting sidetracked here. Point is, it didn't feel like it was long. In fact, it felt very well paced.
Oh no! The first season of Death Note is excellent, and I like it.
Wait, there's more in a single season?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. That's knowledge I wish I didn't had. Now I think I understand why people, like, sort of... Like, why people make fun of you for liking it. I think I understand that now.
Yeah, because... Yeah. Like, most people will like the first season, but then after it, like... It came to an end. There was nothing more to say. The protagonist killed the antagonist. Game over. Light wins.
Wait, Light wins? I thought he dies.
Nope, Light doesn't die in the first season.
Well, that was a spoiler.
Well, it's old. You don't get to claim spoilers when something's like a decade old.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
But yeah,
Like, I still wouldn't spoil the end of Half-Life 2. And I refuse to spoil the end of Half-Life Alyx for my entire life, because that was amazing.
Okay, then I apologize. I thought since we were talking about it, you had seen, but then I remembered that you said you'd only watched like the first few episodes. So
No. I watched up until almost, like, I think it was an episode or two away from concluding.
Okay. Yeah. The final episode, they have the big confrontation.
Anyways, moving on, blah, 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 blah.
Yes. And then, yeah, season 2, they introduce all new characters. Because they literally didn't have anywhere to go.
It's so sad. Like, what is your opinion on capitalism and how it affects art?
On what?
Like, do you think art and capitalism can mix, or do you think that art is never about profit, period?
I think art has always been about profit.
That's an interesting take.
It the only way the Renaissance painters were able to paint is because they found wealthy patrons.
Fair, but wouldn't you agree that, like, that, again, with Death Note and countless other anime, that the need to just keep profiting off of it ruins...
Oh, absolutely. The struggle is with art is you have to, because the artist still needs to eat. There's no getting around that. So they need to make money, but they want to tell a story. They want to make art. So a lot of the times you have artists sneaking in, like, they subvert the art the company wants to get their message across as well.
Can you give an example of this?
What?
Can you give an example of subversion? Because I don't fully understand what you're talking about.
Um, it, well, it varies a lot from which, I mean, depending on who you're working for, it's going to depend on how much freedom you have as an artist. Lots of commissions, lots of jobs are going to be, they want this, 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 and this. That's it. That's all they want. Um, for example, in Renaissance times, a lot of paintings were portraits because that's what the wealthy nobles wanted. They wanted portraits of themselves. So, in order for the artist to get to do anything of his own, he had to work messages into the background. He had to play with
Oh, I get what you're
light
talking about. I think Michelangelo did that with the Sistine Chapel. Didn't he, like, paint one of his critics in as a demon?
yes, or like a Dante. Like, well, Dante is a poor example because his book was looked down upon. But in
I
Dante's
mean, it was
Inferno,
self-insert fanfiction.
yeah, in Dante's Inferno, he basically punishes all the people who he hated. He sent them to literary hell. But yes, I mean, different things like that. It's the sad fact of it is, when you're looking for a job in the arts, you, especially some of your first jobs, are going to be where you don't have a lot of freedom. So you kind of have to carve it out where you can find it.
That's true. But that's the reality. I was more talking about, like, sort of ideologically. Do you think...
Oh, ideologically, I think, I mean, there's definitely room for form and function, but companies will do what companies always do, try to squeeze as much profit out of it as possible. Excuse me, let me grab a drink. Sorry about that. A company is gonna do, I mean, they're a single-minded beast. They live to make profit. They don't care about art or anything else. So, in that sense, no, I don't think large businesses and anything is compatible, really, because if it doesn't make them money, they just get rid of it. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a business where you can be artistic. It's
I suppose that's true if it's small enough. And
yeah,
they, like, value the artist, especially as someone they know personally.
yeah. It's a question of size, of who's in charge.
I think one thing we can all agree on is that corporatism is not capitalism the way it was meant to be. At least not the way Adam Smith portrayed it.
No, but it's sort of the inevitable conclusion, because you have a monster that doesn't die. It just consumes and consumes and consumes. I mean, it's like the biggest lion or the biggest bear in the
You were, for a second you made me think of one of the interpretations of the Wendigo. I say one of because there's a lot of them, but there was. Are you familiar with the stories of the Wendigo, by the way?
yes, one of the stories is it's a warning about greed and gluttony.
Yes, because it always grows bigger the more it eats. And so it needs to have proportionally larger meals, and so it simply just ravenously consumes.
There's many stories of dragons like that as well. The the problem with big companies is I mean
That's also why I, at least on an ideological basis, am for regulation. I'm not a libertarian.
yes. I mean, I don't want to get overly political, but yes, I would be.
Yeah. I actually try to avoid politics, but they do sometimes sneak in.
Yes, it's difficult to avoid because it's. I don't think people realize that politics are just part of everyday life. I mean, everything you do is affected by politics. But I mean, what I was trying to say is, like, the biggest bear in the woods will eventually die. I mean, it gets old, it dies, and a new one takes its place. That doesn't happen with companies.
That's true.
The only way a company goes away is if a bigger company comes along and buys it out, or if it has a massive failing.
Yeah, if it becomes weak enough, which I guess you could consider being getting old and dying off, but even then, that's very.
Right. Like, various politicians have said that companies are people. I'm like, well, if they're people, they're practically immortal.
Yeah, I think that is, like, my god, that's like being allowed to marry body pillow. It's like, no, they are not people, your waifu isn't real. That level of absurdity.
Part of that is because of how the law treats them. The U.S. law never really fully addressed corporations. They sort of sprang out of... The initial idea behind corporations was that it would be a limited time venture to do something like build a bridge. And then after they did that, the company would disband.
And they just assumed that would happen on its own.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, that's...
Yeah, people are kind of dumb with stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, I'm... Like, there was an interesting quote about this. Someone said, I forget who. America is the only country that went from barbarism to decadence without the usual transition of civilization in between.
That sounds like a Churchill quote, but
I don't think it... Sure. It might have been. I actually don't know. All I remember is it makes sense because America is a very young country. And it was founded on the same logic as a rebellious teenager who doesn't understand the way the world works. and so they have their own ideas. Would you say it's accurate? Like, because all of Europe have had thousands of years of politics, like wars, uprisings, all these things to sort of refine the way they do politics.
I don't know if you can generalize it that easily. I would definitely agree that yeah, there's definitely an aspect about America that always comes off as like
Idealistic, but
nature.
also lacking reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Like, sort of, a country never really, I guess, if you were to equate this to a person, never really got life experience and only lives, without, like, any street wisdom. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. It well, even well, part of the problem I think is that the way history is taught to us is almost mythologized. The founding fathers were not nearly as unanimous with their ideas as we like to think they were.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. It was a sort of romanticized concept, like, and that's why I say it's sort of like without maturity, like a teenager who just
Yeah.
learned about politics and then suddenly they stick to an ideology even though they have very little life experience. That kind of feels like a lot of early America's policy, which never really changed.
Yes, there were several who were very idealistic and believed that some of the policies they didn't like would just kind of fade away, and they didn't.
Yeah, there's a lot of romanticism in like early American culture when you look at it. Like a lot of classic American paintings are very romanticized. Like pictures of Washington crossing the Delaware and stuff. I guess that topic ran out of steam.
What?
I said I guess that topic ran out of steam.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was wearing out. Enough politics.
What was the? I'm thinking it was it was because Churchill came up. I remember that one of my favorite Churchill quotes was, "Americans always do the right thing."
At the wrong time.
Eventually.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, and he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Actually,
But
it reminds me, have you ever watched a movie called Casablanca?
a what?
A movie called Casablanca.
Yes, I have.
Do you know the history behind it?
Yes.
Alright, never mind then.
Actually, I was just in Montana, and for some reason, the little town we stopped at, it was just a little tourist trap near the cabins we were staying, and they had a restaurant dedicated to Humphrey Bogart, or
Hmm.
the star of Casablanca and stuff. And like, didn't he live in like New York and California? What? Just just this random restaurant in the middle of nowhere, Montana, has a themed restaurant to this old silver screen actor, and we couldn't figure out why.
I mean, was there one in New York?
No.
Well, clearly these people decided, well, if New York's not gonna do it, we are.
I have no idea why it exists. It's an enigma.
There are a lot of things that are names. Is that an island behind an island? Or is that like a really, really, really big island?
It's one of those bird islands.
Well, that's exciting. I haven't been to one of those in this world yet. You might be right about being at a big island, but I think it's behind one. I don't know. Can't tell yet. What else was there we were talking about? We were talking about Churchill. And about how, America was never there when they... Well, they were there eventually. I always found that a very fascinating thing about America, because, like, the modern perception about America is world police. But there was, once upon a time, a point where Americans did not want to get involved in anything.
No, yeah, there was an isolationist movement, and that just doesn't work, because...
I mean, wasn't the whole revolution isolationist movement? Get out of Europe's stupid 7-year war bullshit? Well, I mean, because the whole point of the taxes was because of, like, the 7-year war, right?
The taxes, yeah, were mostly to help pay for England's wars.
And yeah, because I remember, like, for the longest time... Yep, this is a big island. Oh man, do I have a shovel? We could get dirt. There's a lot of things we could get here, actually. Actually, I'm gonna stay in the boat, just so that the shark doesn't attack. And maybe even make some shark bait.
The shark doesn't attack if both of us are far enough away from the boat.
I'll trust you on that. What was I saying? Yeah, for the longest time, I believe it was George Washington's inauguration speech, which was... It had at least an entire section devoted to why America shouldn't get involved in Europe's bullshit. And for the longest time, it was, like, sort of a tradition for presidents to recite the speech. So it's amazing. It's sort of like, I wouldn't say fetishized, but very much ingrained in the culture for the longest time. Like, leave the wars in Europe to their own affairs.
Yeah.
And then World War I came around, and Americans just started to realize that you can't be neutral anymore.
Well, even before that,
Well, things like Banana Republic / Boxer Rebellion.
Yeah.
That's true. But, like, those were sort of, I guess you would say, corporate wars. Like, there's a reason why no one really thinks about them as, like, a truly, America going to war situation, right? I could be talking out my ass, though, because, like, I admit
we don't like to think of them as American going to war because they're not an exactly pretty part of the history.
Exactly. And honestly, I don't make fun of Americans for that, because there's a lot of parts of Canadian history we don't like to talk about, and we sometimes pretend doesn't exist.
Okay, that was a weird glitch. The bacon went flying.
When pigs fly.
Yep.
You know what that means? Some ugly guy's gonna get laid tonight by his dream girl. I might have put a bit too much effort into that joke. When pigs fly, yeah. Hi, Sean. Hi, Sean. How you doing? Welcome.
Okay, fine. I nerd joke. There, when I was going to college, there was a joke going around about a professor. He asks if he teaches physics, and as a thermodynamics question, he asks, "Is hell getting hotter or colder?"
That's interesting.
A student goes into an elaborate explanation using the laws of thermodynamics to explain why hell is getting colder.
It's freezing over.
Yes. And then he says, to top it off, he says, you can just make up a girl's name. I don't know. Alice said she'd go out, or said she'd sleep with me when hell freezes over, and that happened last night, so hell...
That sounds hilarious. It actually reminds me of something I said out loud in the middle of chemistry class. Because the topic was about acidity. So he was explaining the pH scale. He says, so a 14 on the pH scale is very, very basic. To which I, without any hesitation, blurted out, "Oh, so like my sister." Seriously, not even a chuckle? Or you just muted that whole time?
No, I that's actually really funny.
Oh yeah, that was amazingly funny. Wait, what? Oh yeah, it was a joke I came up with in my chemistry class. You know, calling my sister basic. And from that day forward, every time I saw her with Starbucks, I referred to it as a 14 on the pH scale. I'm surprised there aren't any birds here. I'm gonna jinx myself, aren't I? Boys, welcome, Anna. Anna's my V-sister.
Hello.
That's the thing. Being like someone who made your own model, you don't have any V-siblings, do you?
No. I'm kinda on my own right now.
Nah, whatever. Where is the raft, by the way? Actually, where are you? I don't even know where you are.
I'm on the raft.
Oh, I've just been exploring this island. So anyways, how have you been doing, Anna? I guess your stream's over? Yeah, I see it. But anyways, for those just joining here, this is my guest, Arana. A very nice person, and amazing intellectual, actually, honestly. Sometimes these podcasts don't really go anywhere intelligent, but it's clear that you're definitely as much of a scholar as you claim to be.
It's the autism. I find weird things to look up and then just, well, continue looking up on it.
When were you first diagnosed? I think I was diagnosed at the age of 6.
20?
20, wow. That's interesting. I wonder if it's because it would have been expensive to get that tested. Because, you know,
Yes.
America. Yeah, America, that's what I figured. I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you go that along without, oh, America?
Yeah.
American healthcare, or lack thereof.
Yes. Pretty much, yeah.
The less said about that, the better. Do you have any more commentary or questions or anything? By the way, when do you want to cap the stream off?
Oh, whenever. I mean, I cleared my night, so I don't have anything planned. Um, like, you said you were into editing, video editing?
Yep.
Did you go to school for that? Is it...
Not at all. I might this coming semester. That has been a consideration, because so far I've been going to college for, well, originally electrical engineering, but much like you with computer science, that was hell on earth and caused lots of depression and mental breakdowns. Something I think you could find very relatable. But besides that, I've tried to like branch into like humanitarian fields, because I've been considering human resources, which is the last thing I thought I'd do.
Yeah, I had a strong interest in anthropology, but then I learned I'd have to, like, talk to people, and I'm like, fuck that.
And I guess not knowing you had autism, you never had any kind of exposure therapy or stuff like that.
Like, I just want to study you monkeys. I don't want to get to know you.
I mean, that's not necessarily anthropology, that's like a field of biology, isn't it?
No, that's cultural anthropology, social anthropology.
You just want to study so you can return.
I guess.
On that note, have you ever heard of the Gombe Chimpanzee War? Hello, Artemis.
No.
Oh, that was the first time, it was controversial at the time, because, the scientist who, wrote the paper, she was accused of, like, the greatest sin of, like, you know, interfering with the environment. I forget her name, but she's very famous, and you can easily look her up. She's, like, the foremost, expert on chimpanzees.
Jane something? Goodall?
Jane Goodall? That might be her name, actually. Simply put, this was something she, found in the Gombe National Park, in the 70s, where the monkeys they were studying, the chimps, they just straight up went to war. And it was brutal. Like, we're talking... Do you want me to get into the detail?
I've actually heard about this. Now that you brought it up, I didn't recognize the name, but Jane Goodall and the chimp war, yeah. It was brutal, and it was also possibly influenced by humans.
That's what they accused her of, but since then, this, like, more evidence has come out that this is a thing that just happens. Rarely, but it happens. So what happened was, basically, in the chimp society, there was a power vacuum, because the alpha died. And there was a dispute over who was going to be the next alpha. Besides that, there was also a resource shortage of fertile females, so one side took as many as they could, and that's what started the war.
Yeah, and they accused Goodall of
Interfering.
because she paid too much attention to one and not the other, I believe.
Something like that, yeah. But she would get vindicated, and yeah. But I find it very fascinating for a few reasons. First off, that is a very human reason to go to war. A power vacuum and a resource shortage. Like, that's kind of existential, don't you think?
Well, I was being serious when I called you all monkeys. I mean...
Well, I'm not a human, so okay.
Well, fair, you're not, but...
I like to consider myself a human sometimes. Anyways, but it is very existential when you think about it, but probably one of the more interesting things I found about what happens when they go to war is what happens after they score a kill. Do you know the details of how they engage in warfare?
Yes.
Would
They
you...
will maim and eat it and...
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, after the kill, they'll rip off the junk with their teeth and spit it out. For no reason.
It's... Yeah, it's... Um... They go for the face and genitals to, basically disfigure and prevent, copulation. It's
Population.
reproduction.
I guess if someone wants to... I guess if a corpse can somehow get a hard-on...
Well,
No, this is something that's done post-mortem, keep in mind.
yeah, but death isn't exactly a concept that every animal gets right away.
I know, but, like... Okay, is it possible... Sean Milo says he thinks he has rafts. Not tonight, Milo. Can we just have tonight? Don't worry. Tomorrow, you can come. We're doing more Dying Light tomorrow. But anyways, but, like... Is it actually possible to have a post-mortem erection?
Oh, well, you need blood pressure, so unlikely.
So that's what I mean. It's not simply about preventing the carrying of genes. They do this post-mortem for no reason. But it does make sense to a person ripping off someone's genitals with your teeth if you really hate them. Like ripping off their balls. And that's interesting when you think about it. It's like, that's how primal, like, some of our instincts can be. Also, I think we've now officially hit Joe Rogan levels because we're talking about chimpanzees. And, like, how they rip each other apart. I think we've reached Joe Rogan experience levels.
Oh, goody.
You not a fan of Joe Rogan?
I like the guy, but I feel like some of the guests he has on, he either shouldn't have those guests on, or he should push them more. Like, he doesn't push back against, some of the guests that are a little more questionable.
Well, I kind of respect him for that, though, because he just makes it an open forum without judgment. And, like, I mean, if we have open forums with judgment, you know what we have? We have Twitter.
Yeah.
Like,
At the same time, there are some people who... I don't know if they need a platform.
I think the only people who don't need a platform are the people who think that someone doesn't deserve a platform. Keep in mind, you don't have to agree with them, and you can consider them loony all you want.
Well, like, what I mean is it wasn't on his main show. It was on, like, his radio show or something. But Tucker Carlson had the guy who wrote the bell curve theory on one of his shows. And I'm like...
Bell curve theory? Could you explain that?
Oh, it's a racist book from the 80s that justifies, like, some populations of people are just genetically smarter than others. Yeah,
I see what you're talking about.
The guy did a lot of cherry picking, but, like, Tucker Carlson had him on his show, and I'm like, I don't think that guy needed a platform. I'm pretty sure we could have just left him in whatever gutter you found him in.
I understand that reasoning. That said, and this is something I've had conversations with people about before, there is some amount of diversity when it comes to genetics, but keep in mind it's minor, and as far as I know, there is nothing related to intelligence. For example, like, more melanin in your skin means you're less likely to develop skin cancer from the sun.
Yes. No, there's no question that genetics has an effect on people, but this guy was arguing hardcore like your genetics can affect like 20 IQ points because of the color
Something
of your
tells
skin.
me the only reason they put him on there was for ratings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like, there is no reason. And Tucker Carlson, he
Is
can be pretty rational sometimes. Like, most journalists can. But...
well,
Huh?
he's gone more and more and more down this little rabbit hole, but I'm gonna get off that subject.
Well,
Hey,
like I said, sometimes, emphasis on
yes.
sometimes, journalists can be reasonable. Other times, like, oh god, I still remember when Rachel Maddow thought she had the big doc on Trump's tax returns. Remember that?
No. I try to avoid MSNBC as much
Uh,
as
Simply put, she thought she had dirt on Trump because she had his tax returns. And
possible.
then, because, like, she builds up everything like it's this big grand conspiracy, because fucking no
Well,
one...
MSNBC desperately wants to be the left version of Fox News.
Oh, yes. And that's the thing. Uh, what the documents she found proved is that, at least for the year, Trump was a law-abiding citizen who paid his taxes. And that was it. And then the next day, Colbert raked her over the coals and basically, like he did the entire episode as an impression of her.
That sounds like Colbert.
Yeah. So like I said, there's such a thing as, like I, like, you know, broken clock, right twice a day. We could argue that
Yeah,
Tucker Carlson's a madman, and probably, but hell, broken clock.
it's just as a bisexual woman in a polyamorous relationship, I can't really get behind Fox's messaging.
I mean,
They're not exactly super friendly to people of my
that's
color.
true. That's true. But then again, that's part of the problem of it just being sort of targeted audiences.
Yes, no, it's not good to isolate yourself in an echo chamber, but at the same time, it's also not good to give platforms to the most racist and vilest of people.
Agreed. Well, I mean, maybe if you want to make fun of them, or just, like, have them on as a form of weird entertainment. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, sort of the same reason why I enjoy it when Alex Jones is on Joe Rogan. Because it's like, he goes insane, and it's like, it's hilarious to watch him go on insane rants.
I got the best fucking joke from a friend the other day. They sent me a picture of some anti-vaxxer holding up a bottle of it was photoshopped to all hell, but it was a bottle of some shit that Alex Jones sells, and he's like,
Super, super male vitality.
science chemicals. I got this magic potion from an angry guy yelling about gay frogs.
Oh, the gay frogs. See, that's the thing. It's like, there are people who consider Alex Jones a menace to society. I'm like, if you think so, then you must be paranoid because he is Looney Tunes and everyone knows it. Hell,
Well,
even he
no,
knows it.
that's the problem. Is not everyone knows it. He does have a dedicated fan base, so
A very,
he
I will say though, I have a relative who is total, not just anti-vaxxer, but let's just say they did bury gold in their backyard and they live on some remote settlement. And even then, the people around them think they are weird. So full disclosure there, I understand what you're talking about. Of course, there's going to be a dedicated fan base. But it feels like the majority of people who watched Alex Jones were just doing it so that they could clip him for memes. And I think...
well he didn't make millions from just people. I mean, he's made a lot of money.
I suppose you have a point. Still, it is the delicate balance of when is freedom of speech allowed to be taken away.
True. I don't necessarily think it'd be right to censor him, but having people to counter his lunacy is important.
That's true. That is very true. Thing is, though, I've also found that debates, are sort of lopsided in that they reward you for having quicker wit than your opponent. Like,
Well,
uh,
many debates don't actually follow any sort of debate format.
yeah, and people have been able to poke holes into Ben Shapiro, for example.
Ben Shapiro's an idiot.
Through that. It's amazing to see how that guy went from, sort of an internet icon to an absolute meme, all because he decided to start doing meme reviews, and people realized just how
Yeah.
much of a square he really was.
Well, the thing is he's not that smart, but
He's
smart enough.
quick-witted. He's
Huh?
quick-witted, and he knows how to debate.
Yes, he knows how to debate, and he picks his opponents very carefully because he is a practiced debater who knows the
He's a
issue
master debater, so to
debating.
speak.
What?
He's a master debater, so to speak.
Yes. And well, he most of the people he debates are like freshmen in college who they don't have their political identity necessarily figured out yet.
Yeah,
You
which
know?
is why they come off as, unhinged SJWs, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, if I go to a kindergarten school or a kindergarten class and start doling out math problems, I'm gonna look like a fucking genius.
Exactly. Until, of course, one of them ends up pegging you, and then you realize, oh shit. And then everyone around you realize how much of a not smart person you are.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you spend all your time showing people the footage of you owning owning the people who you basically have lined up that you know you can own, you're gonna look like a master.
This isn't just exclusive to him though. Christopher Hitchens was the same.
Well, who's the guy with the change my mind table?
I don't know, but
It
those
was all over Sam Cedar show. He was supposed to debate someone. He was supposed to debate um some on some podcast. Just this average guy who doesn't debate, and he was all psyched for it because he's practiced and he has all the tricks and he knows that
he got
to
destroyed.
people in. But then an actual political commentator was on the show with him, and he cut. He got the fuck out of there. It was all over Twitter with people making fun of him because he's like, "Oh, we just cut to a live feed of Sam Cedar. Change my pants."
So, but that does kind of bring up what I'm talking about, which is that debates in and of themselves, just by their nature, isn't always fair. Someone like me who trips over my words constantly, I could never do that, but give me enough time to write an essay in response, I could hammer out some good points.
Well, absolutely. Everyone's gonna have their format that's gonna work for them. But here's the thing. This is the big secret. There's no such thing as a fair fight.
That's true.
There's never been a fair fight. Someone is always going to have an advantage.
Of course, that implies that you consider intellectual exchanges to be a form of aggression or struggle, rather than a consensus.
In a debate where both parties are coming there in good faith, it is a discussion.
Yeah, sort of like what we're having right now.
Yes, but in American politics and politics abroad, usually one of those actors is not there in good faith.
Hey.
And
Hi, Mickey. Hi, Mickey.
this becomes a fight.
Yeah. Actually, there's this one video that was randomly in my feed, which compared, American Congress to, the British House of Representatives. And it's actually quite hilarious. Cause apparently, in British politics, everyone shit-talks each other. Like, it's actually surprising how civil Congress is by comparison. Not even just by comparison, it's very civil, very orderly, and very boring. In British Parliament, like, they will shit-talk each other, and there will be, like, hilarious jokes being cracked. And it's like, Jesus Christ, is this a pub?
Yeah, no, there's, rules of decorum and all.
Sorry, one sec. My day's going fine, Mickey. How about you? By the way, this is my guest, Arana. She's a daemon.
Hello.
Sorry, as you were saying?
American, politics are, the Congress is full of all these decorums and ideas that you can't verbally attack someone, and a lot of that came out of Reconstruction era.
I mean, I would say mitigating ad hominems is a good idea.
Yes, but people misunderstand what an ad hominem is. It just because you call someone an idiot doesn't mean it's an ad hominem.
Really?
Nope. An ad hominem is you're an idiot, therefore we shouldn't listen to you. If I say what you said makes no fucking sense, therefore you're an idiot, that's not an ad hominem.
Shark's dead. I don't know, I think by calling someone an idiot, you already kind of imply that there's not worth listening to.
Yes, I would agree, but an ad hominem specifically means you're attacking someone's character rather than their argument. So if you say their argument is, if you give a reason why their argument makes no sense, and then say they're an idiot because of that, that's not an ad hominem.
You mind if I switch gears to a different topic?
Sure.
Because I just thought of something which actually is kind of topical. Have you seen, Steam's latest entry into the console market?
The Steam Deck?
Yes.
I've seen it. I haven't had much interest in it.
What's your opinion? Do you think it's gonna flop?
It has a very tough market, because it has to go up against, basically it's competing against the Switch, which is well established.
Yep, that's what I was thinking. And, like, a lot of people, Mickey says, I'm gonna stick to my goddamn Switch. And that's understandable! Because why would you buy another console? Like, and I remember seeing the news article about it on Twitter, and everyone in the comments said this was a bad idea, or, like, they were mocking it, and honestly, I think it's well-deserved. Like, the deck it's gonna be like the Steam Machine. Actually, do you recall if the Steam Machine came out in the middle of a generation?
No idea.
Because that would explain a lot about its own failure. Because, again, if people already have their own consoles, why would they want anything else?
Well, yeah. What was it? Stadium.
You mean Stadia?
Yeah, Stadia. It, in concept, sounded like a good idea, but
The technology wasn't there.
practice... Well, even in... I take that back. Even in concept, it sounded like a bad idea, because it was like...
Well, I could see some use for it, but having to pay full price for a game, even on
that
top
you
of it...
don't technically own?
I mean, who does own downloaded content these days? Like, it's all licensed, even on Steam. But yeah, and it's definitely, wasn't there a game, wasn't it Journey to Savage Planet or something, which basically went into, like, limbo, because of Stadia, because they bought out that studio and there's been this weird thing and now people can't play it anymore. Mickey says, you can tell a person that Stadia sucks and whoever plays it is stupid. That's true. Well, okay, maybe if they were trying it out just to see and they came to the opinion on their own that it's stupid, but anyone who defends Stadia now, yeah, they're beyond hope.
I'm just thinking of the Merryweather comics that were making, where they made chans of all the
All the browsers?
no, they have browsers too, but they did chans of each of the consoles, and like the Switch was this adorable little girl with pigtails, and Stadia was fucking full of herself, and then finds out, oh, I have no friends.
I won't be surprised if they...
A work of art. If you've never read Merryweather comics, go check them out. They're funny.
Yep. Actually, have you ever seen Meat Canyon's videos?
No.
Oh, man. I need to share Meat Canyon with you. You need to because you said that, especially your art style is definitely one of horror, right? It's definitely not cutesy.
I mean, I can draw cutesy, but
it's not really your thing, right?
I don't do cute.
Yeah, you might enjoy Meat Canyon then, because his whole thing is just, how can I continually find new ways to traumatize my audience? Is basically his idea. And unsurprisingly, the vast majority of his, like, best videos, involve something from your childhood. Like parody comics of SpongeBob or Ed, Edd and Eddy.
Oh my god, I saw the most horrible thing ever. The other day on the internet, I saw someone turn a bunch of Furbies into a piano.
I've heard of that, the Furby organ.
It was the most horrific thing I have ever seen.
But the reason why I wanted to get back to Meat Canyon was because you talked about Merryweather, and he actually ended up hiring some of the voice actors on his channel. And it was for his Bob the Builder parody video, which, as it turns out, depicts a childhood icon as a horrible Japanese yokai. And the thing was, it actually felt like it belonged in Japanese folklore, too. Because, like, the whole point is, he steals your wife if you don't care enough to maintain your own home. And it's like, yeah, that sounds like Japanese folklore. Hell, it sounds like German folklore. I gotta show you that video later. By the way, how have you been tonight, Mickey?
The Germans' idea of a bedtime story. 2 children get lost in the woods. An old woman tries to cook them, but then they cook her and eat her.
Well, I mean, that might have been in a more updated version, but knowing classic German fairy tales, they probably died. I mean, keep in mind, this was a way to scare children into not talking to strangers and not wandering off into the forest.
Well, not only that, but many of those fairy tales developed around the times of the Middle Ages, where child mortality was rather high. So it was
yeah, so of course you want to scare your kids. Yeah, of course you want to traumatize your kids if it meant keeping them alive.
Well, yeah, but it was, I'm not saying that people didn't care when their kids died, but it was viewed differently.
It was viewed as, like, you know, more like, it was far more common and understood.
Yeah. I mean, if you might have had 13 brothers and sisters when you were 10, but by the time you were 20, you had
I guess it also meant that there wasn't a lot of need to express it either, because everyone in the village knew what you were going through. So, like, it's not like someone needed to say anything. It was always, like, understood without communication.
But a lot of old myths tend to get, what's the word?
Violated by Disney?
It's not just Disney that does it. It's the whole Anglo-Saxon mindset of you can't have anything sexual, dirty, or degenerate.
Yes, we don't want to cause a fuss.
Gingified.
Gentrified? Yeah, I guess that's a way to say it. Like, sprucing it up.
Because, okay, so there is a myth in...
By the way, I want to point out some. Mickey's full name is Mickey Mouse, and he even has, like, the icon, and he says, Disney cares about nothing, Disney cares for nothing but goddamn money, and Marvel.
Well, like it or not, Walt Disney is one of the fathers of animation, so...
And he's been dead for probably... Is he over 100 years old now?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but, I mean, when we were talking about, recognizing or separating, I mean, Walt Disney did a lot of shitty things, but, I mean, I gotta give animation granddaddy props. Sorry.
I mean, like I said, take away what you can from people because the vast, vast, vast majority of human history is full of shitty people.
Yes. I mean, we're using processes still today that he invented, so... Well, not necessarily just him and his team.
Oh, hey, Yuki! Yuki's here. He's, another V-brother of mine from Indonesia. How you doing, Yuki? It's probably, like... Knowing your time, it's like, what, 10 in the morning? Yeah, thanks for stopping by. This is... Arana.
Hello. But, I was... myth, right.
Yeah, Anglo-Saxon watering down myths.
Right. When I was in anthropology, one of the teachers, he did a lot of studies with First Nations, Native Americans, and he got the unadulterated versions of their myths, and some of them are fucking hilarious. There was one, it was one of the Midwestern tribes, but I cannot for the life of me remember which one, but basically they had a myth where there were two brothers, and one of them kept sticking his dick in every hole he found, like 3 holes in the ground, everything, and a fox took his dick off. That's the myth. That's it.
I mean, I can understand that.
It's just, the myth was, don't stick your dick in every hole you find.
I mean, that's a pretty good moral. By the way, Yuki says it's a national holiday today. Do you mind expanding upon that? Because I know very little about Indonesian culture. But yeah, speaking of which, I also don't know a lot about Native American folklore either, like the real stuff especially.
No, there was another one where, like, I mean, there's all sorts of myths about, like, and you find them in every land, like, wood ducks have red eyes, and the reason wood ducks have red eyes is because, a duck was out with all his brothers, and a fox tricked them into closing their eyes, and then the fox started breaking all their necks and putting them in a sack, but the last one opened his eyes, saw what the fox was doing, and his eyes turned bloodshot, and that's why wood ducks have red eyes.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's all sorts of little myths like that people would have to explain just little weird quirks in nature. And, well, those get lost, but some of the better myths get either watered down or completely erased. Like,
well, I mean, The duck story makes sense if you're trying to teach kids morals about, not trusting strangers.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of, a lot of them have like an Aesop's fable kind of moral to it too. But yeah, I mean, they're also there to explain like, why is this mountain shaped like a foot or something silly like that. But yeah, no, my favorite that Gooding told us it was don't go sticking your dick in every hole you find. I mean, that was the whole myth. It's just two brothers are out in the woods. One of them kept sticking his dick in every hole he found, and a fox bit his dick off.
I mean, like, again, that's a pretty good story, honestly. Aside from it being hilarious, it's like, yeah, fucking keep it in your pants. I do want to know more about that. I said I was, like, studying, like, humanitarian stuff, going into HR. That was the plan. I have done courses on Indigenous culture in Canada. I haven't learned any of the myths. That's definitely one thing I want to know is, like, the history, especially, like, the pre-colonial history, because it feels like nobody talks about that.
No one does, but it's also it will depend upon the nation you visit, and it will depend upon your relationship with them.
Yeah,
But
that's something I'm
not all,
keenly aware
yeah,
of.
not all of them are like super friendly towards. And in all fairness, they don't exactly have a
Yeah, we kind of,
track record with people to be.
yeah, they, like, their suspicion is well earned. Like,
Yes.
their paranoia and, I guess one would say their stubbornness to stick to their own culture, it's definitely well earned from what the white man's been doing.
Well, it's also the feeling like this is the last shred of what we have left that
Oh,
is
absolutely.
us.
And, I actually
And
have a
here you
friend,
are coming in and trying to take that last little bit.
yeah. Actually, I was talking, to someone who has a very close contact. Basically, they work in a reserve. And they talk about how sometimes the indigenous people, on specific issues, can be so stubborn, even if, what, is being offered is something that, like, would basically advance and, like, help grow the society. But it's about a traditionalism thing and about abandoning tradition, and it's a very difficult and complicated topic sometimes. Like, they told me that, where they work, the internet is shitty and there's no Wi-Fi, so someone tried to put in a fiber line that goes outside the reserve. Some vigilante cut the cord, because because they already have an ISP in reserve, and they don't want another because that's capitalism, that's competition, and that's a white man thing. Likewise, there are some elders I've heard who are stubborn and do not want their language to be written, because written language is a white man thing.
Yes, there are the anthropology teacher went on a lot about that. He was one of the people trying to get them to not necessarily write it, but teach it to like he basically bluntly told some of them, your language dies with you. If no one else knows it, there's no one else. I mean, that's it. There is the next generation hasn't learned it. You haven't written it down.
Apparently, Yuki doesn't understand that market competition is a virtue of capitalism. Either that, or he's just being ironic by saying monopoly is capitalism.
Monopoly is capitalism too. I mean,
It's the cancer of capitalism, yes.
yes.
It's technically a part of the same life form, but it's not exactly a healthy part of it.
It's the natural metastasization of capitalism.
Uh,
I'm not sure that was a word.
Mickey has
But I
to
turned
go.
that into
He
one.
says, bye donkey, human meat man, and bye spider lady. That means you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. See ya, Mickey. But yeah, and the more I kept learning about indigenous people, the more depressing it got because I started to realize how bleak it was. And it always felt like, regardless of how much I could try to help, uh, it feels like their culture would be a relic of the past. It's like you could preserve their languages, but if so few people know it or like use it on a daily basis, then it'll basically become contemporary, like Latin. It's like, yeah, people know how to speak Latin, but nobody speaks it regularly.
No, many of their languages are effectively dead languages now. Um, it's the sad thing that happens with a lot of cultures. I mean, it happened in Europe when Christianity moved in. Many many well, you can see it in Celtic and Scandinavian lore. You can basically chart where Christianity started to change their mythologies, and they started to convert to Christianity.
Yep.
It's
And then we
it's not
started
necessarily.
celebrating the resurrection of Jesus with an egg-laying rabbit.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing
Well, it
because
is when it's
I mean
forced.
I mean it's a sad thing because it's it's a death of a culture, but
Well, here's how I like to put it. It's first and foremost, it depends if it's forced. If it's forced, then you could argue it's death of a culture.
yes.
But it could also be argued that it's sort of like cultural cross-pollination, and that eventually, like especially as the world gets more connected, there will be no more diverse cultures in the future.
Mm,
Which is something I personally hope for because cultures are a sticking point. It's a dividing line between us and them. It's an excuse to hate people.
yeah, I don't know if humans will ever get to the point where there's because even within a broader culture, there are subcultures and stuff like that. But yeah,
True. But though this is
it
why I'm philosophically against the idea of like putting people in groups because I know that
yes,
it perpetuates this.
it perpetuates the tribalism and the mentality that there are thems and us, and
Exactly.
others need to get getting gotten rid of, getting gotten. I have all forgotten my English.
It happens. Oh, but yeah, I think I might end the stream soon though. Just because it's actually getting fairly late here. And much like you, I'm not the only one in the house. And the people living in this house need to get up early in the morning.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's it's getting late here too, so yeah, we can call it if you want.
Not just yet. What else were we talking about? Uh, actually, there was, um, on the subject of, like, indigenous people, I'm sure you're aware of the complicated relationships, that have spawned as a result of treaties.
Yes.
Yeah, the more I kept learning about those, I think that, have you heard of the thing that happened, in Nova Scotia in September with, like, lobster fisheries?
I'm not aware of that one.
Uh, I did a whole, essay on it. And the more I kept learning about it, again, it just made the whole situation feel more bleak. Simply put, there's this, uh, it's, the Micmac and or Mi'kmaq people, depending on how you want to pronounce it, have had the right for over 200 years, like 250 years, to unhindered hunt and fish in the area. Now, keep in mind, this was made by French settlers before the idea of a sovereign nation of Canada was even a concept. Let alone the concept of overfishing and, like, laws that have to be airtight and hold up in court. So, the law stated, or the treaty stated that they were allowed to do this, to support a quote-unquote, what was it, moderate livelihood, I believe was the exact wording. Does that sound vague to you?
Incredibly vague.
Like, what is a moderate livelihood? So...
Well, an actual law would need to define what that is.
Exactly, but this was like some colonial treaty made by people who were probably one of the few literate people in their society, let alone people who went to law school. So, point is, this was a really horribly defined law that was made hundreds of years ago. It still holds to this day, and the government of Canada is not legally allowed to change it. And it's become a sticking point, and what happened in September of last year was the sort of tension between these individual tribes and their fisheries and the Arcadian fishers. It reached a boiling point to the point where someone committed arson. And this was after people started shooting these the Mi'kmaq on their fishing boats with hunting rifles and flare guns. So this was, and like, it took till the arson of the original fishery for the government to step in. But even then, the government can barely do anything. Because, like you said, it's a stern thing to not have their sort of traditions changed. So they're steadfast in protecting these treaties, because basically it's the only thing they have left. So they can't let the government set a precedent. But it also means you have these really horribly thought out and outdated laws, which are causing racial tension, basically, because it means that there's one group of people more equal than another. And there are a lot of things people didn't take into account, like, again, concepts of overfishing. That said, I will admit, I trust Indigenous people to be conscious about overfishing. These are the original eco-conscious people.
I mean...
Well, okay, original as in, you know what I mean.
Yeah, when I hear that, I think of the people who think of, like, Native Americans as being, like, the magical people who are so...
We were taught about that stereotype as well. And... Actually, that was another thing I learned from these classes was, it's like, they want us to understand them as, like, because it is part of their culture that they are stewards of the earth. But they don't want to be thought of as, like, magical, and they want to be thought of as normal people, and, like, a phrase kept coming to my mind, and that was mixed signals. It's like, they want to be treated, like they aren't standard Canadians, but at the same time they do. And again, it depends on person to person, and this is also why Indigenous communities have a huge identity crisis.
Yes, but I think a lot of immigrant, well, in this case they're not immigrants, but...
Actually, immigrants also make it more confusing, because they don't understand all these politics and all these hundreds of years of shit.
But, any outlier in a culture is going to have trouble fitting in to that main culture. Especially if that outlier in the culture wasn't originally part of that culture.
I hear ya.
So it's a struggle to find, because what most people want is they want acceptance, but they don't want that acceptance at the cost of giving up who they are.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And that's again why I think this is a culture that may very well die on its own, just because there will be a young generation someday that just want to fit in with the white
Yeah,
kids in their town and don't want to deal with the tension.
yeah. I don't know if I would say it would die on its own. I mean, the colonial policies did a pretty good job of killing it. It's just,
Probably the worst thing about the residential schools is how effective it was.
yeah.
Worse than all the torture and all the abuse was probably the fact that it worked. This is
Yeah,
depressing.
no, a lot of history can be depressing.
I know, but what I mean, it's depressing because, like, we're gonna have to end on this note, aren't we? On this very bleak note.
Quick, think of a joke.
My life?
Self-deprecation.
Yes, make fun of yourself before other people have a chance. But no, seriously, do you have any idea for a topic we could have to wrap this up?
Okay. So, little Billy is holding a dead frog in his hand, and he walks up to the town pimp. And he goes, "Hey, Mr. Pimp, I need your dirtiest, filthiest whore." And the pimp's like, "Why do you want that, Billy?" And he's like, I just need her." And so Billy goes, he's like, the pimp's like, all right, and, go in, last door on the left. And so little Billy goes in, still holding his dead frog. He goes in, he's in there for a few minutes, he comes back out, and this is just, this question is just killing the pimp. So he's like, little Billy, why would you want to do this to yourself? And little Billy, still holding this frog, he goes, "Well, when I get home, I'm gonna fuck my babysitter. And then when my dad gets home, he's gonna fuck my babysitter. And when my mom gets home, she's gonna fuck my dad. And when the milkman comes in the morning, he's gonna fuck my mom. And that's the son of a bitch who ran over my frog!"
That was an elaborate joke, but I get it.
It was an incredibly elaborate joke. I had to jog a mile for that punchline.
You know, it reminds me of jokes that I heard growing up, which were also and especially it was jokes you'd hear as a kid, so they'd be like really lowbrow fourth grader humor, but you'd have to walk a mile to get to the punchline.
That joke just always stuck with me from, like, middle school, so...
Yeah, it's that kind of humor. Have you ever wondered why dad jokes are so bad?
I don't know.
It's because dads can't tell the actual jokes they know to kids. Like,
That's not untrue.
especially my dad who grew up in, like, the sticks of rural Canada, where one family was the diverse population. It's like, holy shit, he grew up with a lot of racist humor. I'm not throwing him under the bus or anything, and he's obviously smart enough. But it's like, yep, that's the kind of society he unfortunately grew up in. Actually, because my dad's parents were Dutch, his parents were basically told to stop teaching their kids Dutch. Because we're in Canada, where we speak English. And so my dad never ended up learning Dutch. Kind of sad. But no, it's...
It's also a load of poor shit. There's all these people, like, when my great-great-grandfather came here, he learned English right away. I'm like, bullshit. There was entire communities of Americans that did not learn. They spoke Italian, or they spoke Greek, or whatever their native language was.
Yep.
It's difficult.
That was my mother's side of the
language.
family, too. She was Italian. And, like, basically her family came after... Both my families had to suffer through World War II before they came to Canada. But yeah, it's fascinating. Sometimes. Anyways, I think now we can officially end it off. Thank you, Arana, for coming. I would love to have you on here.
Wait. I got one more joke.
Okay.
It's about paper. Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
Too bad. It's terrible.
Anyways.
Dad joke!
Bad joke, bad joke. Anyways, so thank you again. I would love to have you on here. You're definitely someone fun to talk to. Thank you to everyone who was in chat. I guess see you all later. Do you have any final note to say?
I hope, you keep watching us. I would love to come back for another chat, too.
Alright, yep, so long. See you later then.
Okay.